this week we are going to unveil a brand new segment we like to call the Titans Notebook with Stoney Keeley. And as we see, we have this wonderful new graphic with Stoney in the Titans in the movie Notebook here. And we are going to break down everything that Stoney saw this week from this game, what he liked, what maybe he didn't like, things like that from this game. And so without further ado, Stoney, we're going to start off. Where do you want to head first with this matchup?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever's easiest for you to pull up, JT.
Oh, great. Well, then, let's start with T'Vondre Sweat, because even though the pressure wasn't the best this week, I do think T'Vondre Sweat has shown a lot over the past couple of weeks. It really feels like, we've seen this guy continue to get better and better over the past couple of weeks, just with his raw power. It's the things we kept talking about from the Senior Bowl on. And, it feels like, as much as I think I saw somebody tracking this, that they had, I think, 4 almost sacks on Sam Darnold in this game. And simply because there just is no outside pressure in this game, T'Vondre Sweat's not able to get there because of, his size and, how his body dictates that. But still, like, the pressure we're seeing is really good from him so far.
Yeah. And then another layer of that is that when you do generate the pressure up the middle on a guy like Sam Darnold, if there's nobody on the edge to contain, it gives him a pretty clear exit plan. And I felt like that's what he was doing all afternoon on Sunday. What I found particularly impressive about T'Vondre Sweat is his hands. I've been a big fan of his hands as a sort of pass rush tool. I think he's got a really good cross swipe. I think he can bat those hands down, stab a shoulder, displace an offensive lineman, make him pay for it. The raw power is there, and we've seen those moves on his Texas tape in the pass rush, but using his hands against the run to disengage, to shed blockers, to toss dudes down, force runners back inside where another Titan cleans up on the tackle, that sort of thing was particularly impressive to me. And I think it's one of those things that people just kind of put him in a box as this like big run stuffing defensive tackle. But I thought this game really highlighted his hands and how he's able to use those to not only rush the passer, but to also disengage, shed a block, and get to the ball carrier as well.
Yeah, I do think, like, once again, like, the pieces are in place, and Jeffrey Simmons was once again very had high praise for the rookie, and he continues to get high praise because even though he's not exactly racking up things on the stat sheet, like, he is playing as advertised, that I think we all could have seen. And simply, if a lot of the other pieces around him would simply click as well and play to their potential, we could probably see more stats from guys like Harold Landry and Arden Key and those guys. But I mean, specifically, we've seen the command of double teams over the past couple of weeks that he has been getting. I think that's one of the biggest things we've seen so far from him, that, with another year, another acquisition cycle, when we get to the draft talk, we're going to talk a lot about edge rushers, because I do think in a bad class, there has been decent talk about some of these edge rusher coming out, maybe some hidden gems for the edge rushers. So, I like what we're seeing from T'Vondre Sweat, and especially in this game. And Logan saying Sam Darnold was Weichel Vick. Like, that dude, I was beside myself sometimes with how he was being that mobile and getting out of these positions. And so, I think if he can get one more second on him or one more hand on him, I feel like we would have seen T'Vondre Sweat maybe rack up some other things on the stat sheet here. Let's move over to the other side of the line here and talk about Peter Skoronski, who has continued to have, I think he's had some good games, but specifically this play, which I absolutely loved. I'm glad that you pointed it out too. I noticed it immediately right there. The absolute, like, I'm going to still finish out the play and find someone to absolutely pancake into the ground like that, to kind of give Will Levis a little bit more time to get the first down and make some moves with his feet. I think over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Peter Skoronski continue to get better and better.
Well, yeah. And in this play in particular, it's just, I mean, you think about how these guys have to see the field and process things that are happening in just a matter of a split second. And what I really liked about this play is how he does kind of pass the rusher off to JC Latham. and you see Latham take over. He trusts Latham in that matchup, but then he immediately gets his head around afterwards and he's like, okay, I'm looking for work. I got to find somebody to hit. And he just happens to catch a guy mid jump and just decides, you know what? I'm going to just push this guy, shove him into the dirt, put him on the ground. And it's a case where, you know, if that guy was still on 2 feet, you watch the angle of Levis's run here, he might have been able to make a play and stop this from getting the yardage that it did. So it's just real good head on a swivel stuff, identification, processing from Peter Skoronski, trust in JC Latham and communicating and passing off those assignments, but still finding somebody to hit, man. That's good offensive line play right there.
As ugly as this offense sometimes is, watching the line is, you know, I think it's one of the best parts of rewatching the tape, especially like, I think you bring up a great point. Like the development of JC Latham and that connection with Peter Skoronski on the left side is something that has happened over the past couple of weeks that I think is going to be invaluable when we talk about this team going into next year and how this offensive line can only improve and go up from here. Like that is like, even in this lost season, another thing that we can still look for and Titans fans can have hope for, especially in this season, is seeing these young guys who, you know, maybe he isn't the all-star 11th overall pick worthy guy that you think he may be, but we're seeing the trends go in the right way and we're going in the right direction with him and a guy like him. So really good to see there. Next guy let's talk about, and this is the talk of the town today. NWI having one of the Titans' biggest receptions of all time. It ties the longest reception I believe in franchise history, going back to 1962. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, also the longest play from scrimmage this year of any team in the NFL. I mean, talk about a team that felt like when I watched this at the game, it felt like a lot of us were ready to stick a fork in this team. It was like they're not going to be really able to do anything to get back in this game, even if they wanted to. Penalties be damned, because they're backed up. You watch Tony Pollard, by the way, barely get out of the end zone. I mean, Dylan Radins and Daniel Brunskill get absolutely blown up at the line. Tony Pollard barely manages to escape a safety there. Then they go with the QB sneak on second down, and you know they're at their like 1 or 2 yard line, and this is not a play I think anybody was expecting. I know my jaw was dropped simply because I was in disbelief of what was going on. And as you see a little bit there, he talked about it in his post-game availability that Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, he's in the hot diggity dog from Mickey's Mouse Clubhouse, which I thought was a nice little touch there. Stoney, your thoughts on Nick Westbrook-Ikhine's play over the past couple of weeks, and some thinking that he may be even better than Calvin Ridley on this team right now?
I don't think that, JT, and I hate that it's come to this because I don't want to disparage the good name of Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I think, listen, man, this is a guy that his entire career, he's just kind of hung around the roster. And every year it seems like he gets a new 1-year deal. But looking at how he's excelling in this offense because of the way he does multiple things well, I think he's a good fit. I think he's got some chemistry going with Levis. I think that he's earned the trust of this coaching staff. And I think it's about time we talk about a longer term deal for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine than just 2 or 3, or than just the 1-year deals that he's been getting. Give him a 2 or 3 year deal, see what he can do, because he's earned it. I will say, in this tremendous concentration to haul that thing in, you notice him tuck the ball in his outside, his right arm. So if anybody catches him from behind, forces a fumble, that thing's more likely to go out of bounds. And then the wheels, man, NWI, listen, I'm not going to go out here and call him a burner because I know his separation numbers are not exactly that great. But when he has a lane like this, when he has a free run, I think he's faster than people give him credit for. And that's the case with a lot of aspects of his game. He's sneaky, better than people think he is. And I'm just happy to see it for a guy like this, that all of the hard work, the teammates seem to love him, rally around him too. for all the work that the guys put in, it's turning into production, and he's producing for this offense right now, and he just might play himself into a contract.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And Z Dean in the comments here, welcome back. Good to see you, Z Dean. He says Ridley, NWI, and Oliver are the best wide receiver trio in the league. I mean, the streets are saying that NWI, put him up there against Zay Flowers and the George Pickens of the world, even the Devontae Adams of the world, and NWI would cook them in his current state. I will, out of this list that a supposed person put together today on Nashville Airways, I probably would give him credit on saying NWI right now is playing better than an injured Michael Pittman. And that's as far as I will go on a certain list. And even then, I think it's a debate. But right now, considering the quarterback play, considering where he is on his team right now, considering the injury, I feel like I would take NWI right now over Michael Pittman. And certainly you're getting a better deal on him right now than that Michael Pittman contract that he signed earlier this offseason, or if last year. I do like Chef Rand's comp here. NWI is an Alan Lazard kind of guy, and I don't know if that's backed up by any comp. It just when you
right.
look, it feels like him. That's a vibes take, and I'm here for it. But I think that segues into our last guy that I want to talk about, and you want to talk about here with the Titans notebook. Let's talk about some Will Levis, because plays like this, those deep ball plays, we're finally connecting, and we were seeing them hit. And Brian Callahan continued to compliment Will Levis on his ability to make those plays. Will Levis, we're gonna finish the show here after we get done with the Titans notebook, but this is the second game in a row where you've seen Will Levis make some throws that say this guy, he could put it all together.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was the encouraging aspect, something that I would be curious to hear from the coaching staff. Were these shots more calculated, dialed up, because they're saying, okay, Will Levis is back, he's gotten into a rhythm, we've seen him kind of manage the game a little bit better against the Chargers last week, now let's start dialing some of this stuff up? Or was this simply a Will Levis thing where these opportunities have been there, he just hasn't been taking them, but now things are slowing down to the point where he feels comfortable taking them? I don't know, but for whatever reason, these deep plays, these big chunk plays against a damn good defense, mind you, we can't lose sight of that in the grand scheme of this conversation. The Vikings are a good football team, but the fact that several of these big plays in the passing game are starting to click, I think is encouraging for his development. It's something that we haven't seen up to this point this season.
No, I definitely agree. And you bring up a great point. I feel like this was a game we were talking about on Friday where, a guy like Will Levis could struggle against a defense like this. And when rewatching the tape, you look at how many disguised looks where they put all the linebackers, they put the guys on the line, and then have 2 to 3 guys drop back in coverage. This is a tough defense to go up against, especially because you also have some linebackers playing in the slot and covering wide receivers. It's a tough defense to decipher at the line of scrimmage. And for a decent part of this game, I don't think I would go as far and say the first half was anything exciting, but the second half, I think Will Levis really had a pulse on this defense that I would say, basically, you could look at any guy on this defense, maybe an Ivan Pace Jr., which once again, why did he not go? Why did he go undrafted? You'll get a guy like Blake Cashman, who's playing some of his best ball right now. Jonathan Grenard, who can be in coverage, but also play anywhere on the front of the line. You look at guys like Andrew Van Ginkel. These guys basically could line up and play anywhere on the line of scrimmage. And that's what we were seeing happen in this game. And for the better part of it, I think Will Levis operated this offense in a manner that I would have expected anyone to operate going up against this Minnesota defense. Did he not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a step forward from what we've seen earlier on in the season. I think this kind of opens the door for a trickier conversation that I don't know if we have time for today, but I think, if he continues on this trajectory, and as Jay Nelson points out in the chat, maybe the 2 best defenses in football that they've played the last 2 weeks. And I think they've been his 2 best games of the season so far. If he keeps pushing this way, do we start to have that conversation about does he get another shot in 2025? Because when you look at this draft class, I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is going to be worth the number 2 overall pick when you have an edge rusher there that you might could take instead. If you don't get Shedeur Sanders, I don't think there's anybody else in this class right now that looks like a bona fide starter. Don't know what you could do in free agency. So, I mean, maybe we're starting to kind of change the conversation at the quarterback position a little bit because of how well Levis has played against these 2 defenses. And then to further that point, if he goes on to play worse defenses and continues to look better, this conversation could go to a place that I did not think it was going to go several weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I think that has been a surprise to all of us. And if you want to save that conversation, I think it's one that we can at least start at the end of this episode. And that was your notes from this game. I thought, that's a lot of the progress you want to see from a lot of these guys. And if you guys like this segment and the graphic down in the below, I do believe it. I like it a lot. So we'll have to do this more often.